Hey guys, this is the second part of the lecture on soft skills, and this lecture is divided into two parts. The first part is concerned with direct communication and the soft skills which are associated with direct communication, especially non-verbal communication. And the second part of our lecture concerns with the soft skills that we need to adapt while we are involved in an indirect communication. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin our lecture. Now, as I said before, the first part of today's lecture deals with non-verbal communication. Now, as I said in the previous lecture, there are certain elements to non-verbal communication. The posture that a person has or a person shows will indicate whether that person is tensed, whether that person is listening to you, whether the person is being an active listener, or whether the person is nervous. Similarly, gestures also play a major role in non-verbal communication along with eye contact. So we'll be dealing with gestures and eye contact in this lecture. Now, what is a gesture? Or what are gestures? Gestures are movements of the arms, face and eyes to communicate something. So if you move your hands, like this lady over here moves her hands as if she doesn't know what is happening around her. So it is a quizzical look. We feel that this lady has got no clue on what is happening around her. That's why she has kept her hands like this. So it's a movement of arms. It's a movement of face. Like you can indicate whether you are interested in a conversation or whether if you're sneaking in to someone speaking, then it can be indicated using a gesture similar to this one. Whether this girl is keen to hear about what the other person is trying to say. It has a negative connotation as well as a positive connotation. Maybe she is keenly listening to the other person, or she might be eavesdropping on what the other person has said. So it's clearly evident from the gesture that she makes that she is eavesdropping or she is listening intently. Now, eyes also communicate. Sometimes your eyes would give out messages. Like if you are sad, it would get reflected in your eyes. If you are happy and jubilant, it would get reflected in your eyes. If you have got no clue on what is happening all around you, then you would be looking distant, right? Your eyes will be distant. You will be looking at another direction altogether. So you will be distant and it will be reflected in your eyes. So gestures are movements of the arms, face and eyes to communicate something. Now this may be done knowingly or unknowingly. That is, sometimes a person might consciously use a lot of gestures, or it might happen unknowingly, like an involuntary action. Now, how can you hone your gestures or how can you polish your gestures? Because we are dealing with soft skills here, so we need to learn how can you hone or how can you improve your gestures. Your gestures should not be forced. They should be natural and spontaneous. Another person should not feel like you are acting or you are faking it. Your gestures should not be forced. They should appear natural and spontaneous. You know, sometimes when you listen to some sermons given by certain pastors, usually they use a whole lot of gestures to enthrall the audience, right? And after some time, what happens is that, as you might have seen in the movie Trance, what happens after some time is that you feel that like this is a bit of faking or that the person is exerting himself too much. So gestures should not be forced. Whatever that you are putting forth should appear natural and spontaneous. Okay, even though if you are using a gesture consciously, it must appear as natural and spontaneous. It should not be forced. Now, another thing is that when you are listening to someone or when you're talking to another person, your hands should not be kept hidden in your pocket. Usually, people use their hands to communicate, right? Non-verbal communications happen through hands. But whenever you're talking to a person, you should not keep your hands hidden in your pocket. It shows that you are not sure, you are not certain, or that you are not confident enough. And a person who always hides his hands in pockets usually would hide something from you. Similarly, a person who keeps his hands together, tied together, crossed, is a very narrow-minded person. He or she is trying to hide certain things from you. Body language experts do suggest that if a person keeps his hands on his pockets, then he or she is unsure. And if a person is keeping their arms crossed, it may either mean anger, or it may mean that the person is trying to hide something from you. Whereas if a person keeps an open arm, then it shows that the person is welcoming. Now, arms should not be fidgeted. What do you mean by fidgeting or fidgeted? Like, you cannot keep your arms steady. You will be constantly using your fingers, tapping here or there on the table, or you might be using your fingers in one way or the other. It shows that you are nervous. When you're fidgeting with your fingers, when your fingers fidget, it shows that you are nervous. Now, fidget means to wiggle or to twist or twitch nervously. When you are sitting idly, when you are moving your fingers or twitching your fingers and hands, then that's called fidgeting. You must also not keep your arms crossed. It shows that you are hostile. You are not willing to speak to other person, or you are not welcoming enough. You must not keep your arms crossed or tied behind your back. When you keep your hands tied behind your back, it has got two meanings to it. Sometimes it shows confidence, because often when leaders come to address people on the podium, they keep their hands behind their backs. So there are two ways of keeping it. I shall elucidate it further or explain the concept further by using a picture. So whenever you keep your hands tied behind your back, it shows either confidence or it shows that you are nervous. So there are two ways in which you keep your hands. So one way is the way in which leaders hold their hands when they are in a podium or when they are addressing a larger audience. And the other way is when an ordinary person shrugs one side of his shoulder and then keeps his hands on the back side. Then it shows that the person is nervous. Okay, the person again is hiding something. Now, your hands should always aid in communication, and it should be used minimally for effective communication. You should not be using your hands on and on, even when you are talking or even when you are lecturing. Always use your hand gestures at a minimal, in a minimal way. Okay, always use your hand gestures in a minimal way. That is, you should limit your hand gestures. You should not use your hand gestures frequently, or you must not overdo it. Now, frequent confusing gestures give out wrong signals. So a person, if he uses too much gestures, he uses eyes to communicate, he uses his hands to communicate, etc., or even he uses his pace to communicate, then it shows that the person would be giving out all the wrong signals, because it shows that the person is nervous. Often when you are nervous, you give out a whole lot of signals. Your body gives out a whole lot of signals, and it happens involuntarily. But sometimes people may overdo their gestures. They might stare at a person instead of just glancing at them, or they might fidget their fingers, they might fidget their hands, they might fidget they might play with their legs and the like, and it would not effectively communicate. Instead, it would hinder communication. So you must avoid confusing gestures. So one must practice right gestures to become an effective communicator. Now let's take a look at some of the gestures that one must not use while communicating. See here, a person must not keep his hands inside the pockets. Then he must not be fidgeting with his hands. As you can see here, it shows nervousness. Again here, look at his eye movement. It shows that he is nervous. He is also fidgeting with his hands, which shows that he is nervous. And the lady over here is extremely angry. That's why she has kept her hands crossed, and even the look on her face shows contempt. Right? And this is the gesture that I said about. Hands behind the back. Usually politicians and statesmen and major, very important industrialists and all keep this gesture where they place their one palm on top of another. That shows confidence. But if you do the same, but you place one palm on your wrist and then you slightly lower your shoulders, then it shows that you are nervous. So there are two ways of communicating. This shows confidence when a palm is placed over another palm and both the shoulders are straight, then it shows confidence. And if one shoulder is leaning or one shoulder leans to one direction and the person helps or try to hold his wrist, then it shows nervousness. Okay, so these are some of the don'ts while you are communicating with a person non-verbally. Now, another key factor that a person needs to know while communicating with a person is the right use or the optimal use of eye contact. Now, how do we do it? Let's take a look at it. Eyes are great communicators, and one has to look confident and positive. In one-to-one conversations, eye contact tells you if the listener is listening. So in one-to-one conversations, you must always address the person. You must always look the person in the eye and address him. You must always face him. You must look him in the eye and speak. So in one-to-one communication, eye contact tells you whether the person is listening or not. Shifting eyes denote lack of interest in your conversations. Hey, at times people may shift their eyes and it denotes lack of interest in your communication. Now the first picture over here is an example of shifting eyes. She is shifting her eyes from one point to another. So it shows that she is not listening to the listener. She is thinking about something. This is called shifting eyes. Instead of actively listening to what the other person says, she is thinking about something. So shifting eyes is a clear marker of non-communication. If a person shifts their eyes while you are communicating, it either shows that the person is lying or that the person is not interested in what you speak. So you need to stop your conversation then and there if the person is not focusing. Now, it may also indicate that the person is not interested in the conversation. It might also indicate that the person is thinking about something else. So this is one thing that you need to avoid while communicating with another person. Now the second thing is, one should not stare at anyone but maintain a steady gaze while the others are talking. Now when I say that you must look at a person straight in the eye and communicate, you must not misunderstand and you must not mistook it as staring at someone, because staring at someone is entirely different from maintaining a steady gaze. Maintaining a steady gaze means throughout the conversation you are just looking at them. You may at times blink your eyes. It shows that you are human, and you may at times look here or there. Even if it is a steady gaze, at times your eyes may wander off. That's okay. It means that you're keeping a steady gaze. It shows that you are showing interest. It's not like the shifting eye phenomenon that I explained just before. But when you blink, it shows that you are just human. You must not stare at person, but you must always maintain a steady gaze while the other is talking. Now take the second GIF for that matter. Here the person is clearly confronting the other. He is staring straight at him in the eye, and the stare match may go on and on, especially since it's a back. battling situation, the staring might go on, and you should not stare at another person. So half of the problems in the world happens when a person stares at another person for a long time. You must not stare at another person. It's not polite to do that. Instead, you must refrain from it. You must always keep a steady gaze. Now, the steady gaze means if the conversation is pleasant, then you might smile in between. So there will be a twitch in your eyes. It's quite natural. And you might blink in between. That's also quite natural. But you will be listening to the person intently. So that's the meaning of a steady gaze. Like this man here, he has a steady gaze. Now, another thing is that if you are in a group or while addressing a larger audience, one has to look around evenly, and this helps to build a rapport with the audience. So whenever you are in a larger group or when you are addressing a larger audience, you must look at each and every person evenly. Now this is something that your teachers might have taught you while you were in schools. Whenever you are addressing a larger gathering or whenever you are addressing a larger crowd, you must not stand there and just blankly stare at the wall, or you just look at your friend and then just speak. That's not the way you do it. You must address each and every person in the eye, and that's the first lesson in public speaking. That is, whenever you are addressing a larger audience, one has to look at each and every person who's there in the audience, and you must look evenly in their eye, and this is to build a rapport with the listener. Now, what do you mean by rapport with the listener? This is to engage the attention of the audience in order to get friendly with the audience. Rapport means to get friendly with the audience. You must address each and every person who is there in the audience. So the look must fall evenly, and this is one of the tactic which is used by seasoned politicians. So the seasoned politicians might climb onto a podium, might climb onto a stage and address each and every one in the crowd. Their head would turn from one person to another, and it happens just naturally to them. Now, this is an example of such a gaze. Here, as you can see, Kennedy here is addressing the citizens of United States, and he is looking at each and every person over here. His glance shifts from here to here, from paper to here. It shifts on and on. So he is trying to maintain an eye contact with people around him. Okay, so that's there. Now, eyes can give you away. That is, if you are feeling insecure, your eyes will reflect it. If you are feeling lost, when people feel depressed, they don't look at people in the eye. Their eyes gets lost somewhere. That is, they won't be able to focus or concentrate on a particular person. Instead, their eyes would wander. It shows that the person is thinking about something else. Okay, so eyes can give you away. And another way of putting it is that if a person is lying to you, he won't give you direct eye contact. He would stare at some place or the other and then speak to you as if you don't exist. So it shows that the person is lying. It also shows that he or she may be a bit narcissistic because he is not listening to you. Instead, he is staring, look at some place or the other. So eyes can give you away. If you are afraid or insecure, your eyes will give you away. It will be seen reflected in your eyes. So you need to train yourself to keep a steady gaze. Whenever you're talking to someone, look them in the eye and talk. Proper eye contact reflects your sincerity and integrity, and it will help build trust. So if you are able to maintain a proper eye contact with a person, it shows that you are sincere. If you are able to look at a person in the eye and then speak, there are people who tell white lies, and there are people who say outright blatant lies straight to your face, looking at your eyes, because they are seasoned to say so. But still, eye contact shows integrity and sincerity. If a person is sincere, then he will maintain a firm eye contact. He will maintain a steady gaze whenever he or she is speaking. And it helps in building trust. Even if you are meeting a person for the first time, but they speak to you by maintaining a constant or a persistent eye contact, a steady gaze, then you feel like the person is trustworthy. So even management students, for that matter, know that this actually works. That's why when they go around to different houses trying to sell wares, they usually look at people in their eyes and then they just talk, because they are given training on this, so they know how to sell. So proper eye contact reflects your sincerity and integrity. So whenever, if you are going to work in a firm too, they will gauge your sincerity. They will gauge your sincerity by the way in which you look at those people, by the way in which you look at the manager, the way in which you are looking at the other panel of interviewers. So eye contact would actually give you away. If you are feeling nervous and insecure, if you are hiding something from the employer, it would be reflected in the way in which you look at them. So it will be reflected in your eye contact. So whenever you are speaking with someone, maintain proper eye contact, but because it helps build trust in you. So once again, recapping, shifting eyes shows a lack of interest in your conversation. Now one should not stare at anyone but maintain a steady gaze while the person is talking. Now in a group or when addressing a larger crowd or audience, your glance must be distributed evenly. So one has to look around evenly, and this is to build a rapport with the listeners. Moving on to the second part of our lecture. Apart from direct communication, there are also methods of communication where physical presence of the individual is not required, like a telephonic conversation or emails. In both the scenarios, the physical presence of the person is not required. Though you are communicating, you are not present there. Only your voice may be present. Your gestures, the way in which you move, the way in which you sit, the way in which you look, it doesn't matter if you are engaging in a telephonic conversation or if you are engaging in a chat or a mail with someone. So what are some of the key pointers that you need to look out for when you are involved in a telephonic conversation? Let's take a look at it. Telephonic conversations are very tricky. Since communication is done verbally with no access to reading the body language, one has to be conscious about the tone, pace, loudness and clarity. So when you are speaking to someone over the phone, you need to be very conscious, because communication is not done on a personal level here. It's done verbally. Okay, so you have no other non-verbal communicators to communicate. There is no non-verbal cue which aids in effective communication when it comes to telephone or telephonic conversations. So telephone conversations can be very tricky since the communication is done verbally with no access for reading the body language. When you are talking to someone over the phone, the person is not seeing you. Unless it is a video call, the person is not going to see you. So your body language doesn't matter there, or nobody would be able to read your body language. So it becomes all the more important to be conscious of your tone, because sometimes people might talk in a very rude manner over the phone, but they might be sad and it might get reflected in their eyes. That might be the reason why they speak in a very rude tone, but it won't get reflected back. The other person might think that this person is having a grudge against them. Another thing is, you need to focus on the pace. That is, whenever you are speaking, you should not go on and on without full stop, without pauses. The other person won't be able to understand if you are not able to keep a pace. Another thing is that you must be loud enough for the other person to hear, and you should not be too loud also. So you must be loud enough for the person to hear, but you should not be too loud. Another thing is that you should be clear in whatever that you say. Without formal introductions, never begin a telephonic conversations. Always identify yourself at the beginning of the call. This is to give out clarity. Whenever you are, even if the person may have saved your number, but if you are calling the person for after such a long time, he or she might not recognize you from your voice, right? So it's always better to introduce yourself first at the beginning of a call. This would avoid a whole lot of miscommunication and confusions. Another thing is that the tone of your voice should be confident and positive. You should always sound confident and positive. If it is a formal call, you must be confident as well as positive. You must sit up straight and then answer to the calls. That way, more oxygen would pump into your lungs. So you won't be feeling nervous. You will be feeling light. And then you will be able to communicate effectively. So, sit up straight and answer the calls, be confident and be positive. Another thing is that do not carry on side conversations while you are on phone. For example, you might be speaking with your teacher or you might be speaking with your friend. Suddenly your mother comes and then you start speaking with them. Now another friend comes and you start speaking with them. It's like insulting the other person, because you have started a conversation and you that too a telephonic conversation with the other person, and suddenly you are shifting your focus from that person to another person who is there in your room with you. So it feels the other person, that is the person on the phone, might feel offended. So it's always better not to distract yourself with conversations with others, and you should not be doing chores while you are speaking over the phone. Like, you must not be cleaning the dishes or washing the clothes while you are speaking over the phone to someone else. Then again, your focus is shifted from the phone conversation, from the telephonic conversation, to whatever thing that you're doing. So it is not good. Okay. Now another thing is that is what is the meaning of chores? You must not be doing any of the personal work while you are speaking to another person over the phone. You must not be doing any domestic work while you are speaking to another person over the phone. This shows disrespect to the caller. This shows that you are not respecting the caller enough, because you have anyway taken the pains to call this person, and then you are showing disrespect by speaking to another person or involving in another duty. So it shows that you are not valuing the other person enough. So you must not do that. You must never do that. Another thing is, keep an even pace while you talk. You must not be too fast. You must not be too slow. If you're going too slow, the listener might lose interest in the conversation. If you're going too fast, the listener might not understand even a word that you say. The caller may not be able to understand the message clearly if you talk too slow or if you talk too fast. Now, clarity of your voice is essential. So how can you develop the way in which you speak? It's simple. Just read some passages from your textbooks, or read some passages from any book for that matter, fiction or non-fiction. Read it loudly. The only way to improve the way in which you communicate, improve the way in which you talk, is to read. That's why teachers tell you to read newspapers every day, and you must read it out loud. So work on the clarity of your voice by reading passages out loudly and evaluating it. How well have you read it? So read passages loudly and then try to evaluate your voice. Now try to keep the telephone calls brief. Whenever you're talking to someone, especially if it is in a work space, you don't go on and on to 1 hour conversations. If it is a very dear colleague, then you might go on to 1 hour conversations, but it always takes up their time, it takes up your time. So whenever you are at a workplace, you must cut it short. The telephone calls has to be brief, and lengthy calls are not proper. You must not explain yourself on and on over the phone, or you must not be narrating some incident that happened to your life while you are on phone when you are talking with someone from your workplace, you must not be doing all these things where you narrate an event from your personal life or you talk about it for 1 hour. Then you are not helping yourself, you're not helping the other person too, because you are taking away valuable time from their work. So try to keep your telephone calls brief. Lengthy calls are not proper. Always state whatever that you wish to say. Okay, when you're calling up someone, it might be to convey a message, right? So be precise on the point and convey it in a clear manner. It is not polite to let your mobile phones ring loudly when you are in a meeting or when you are in a public place like a restaurant, theater, or training rooms, or even in offices for that matter. Always keep your phone in silent mode when you are in all these places. It's not good, it's not polite. If you have set your ringtone to some random music number or some random false number, again, it won't be appropriate. Suppose you go to a funeral and your phone rings and it is some kind of a peppy number, that your ringtone is some kind of a peppy number, then it would not good look on you, right? So it's always better to keep your phones off while you are in a meeting or when you're in a public space like restaurants, theaters, training rooms, etc. Now the second point is also important. You can improve your ability to speak by reading passages from texts. Another way you can do it is that you may rehearse a speech in front of the mirror. You may record it. Nowadays you can record it using your phone recorders, right? You may record it and listen to your own voice. That way you'll be able to improve yourselves. Now those were some of the things that you had to keep in mind while you were talking to someone over the phone, or while you are talking to someone over the phone. Now let's move on to netiquette, which are rules that you need to follow while you are talking or communicating with people via internet or using internet. So let's take a look at it. Now, what is the meaning of the term netiquette? Now, it's a portmanteau word. It's a combination of two words, net and network and etiquette. Okay, it is the short form for internet etiquette. Internet etiquette. So, netiquette is a code of good and preferred behavior on the internet. So, when you are on the internet, you must follow a code or a behavior, and that's called netiquette. Observing and exercising good online behavior is not only mandatory, but it's also everyone's possibility. It's also everyone's responsibility. So, netiquette is a code of preferred behavior, or it can be also called as a code of good behavior. And while you're online, you must be in your good behavior. You must not take it lightly, because netiquette is not only mandatory, it is also each and every person's responsibility. Especially in this new era, in this new normal world where everyone is communicating using internet, it is preferred that you must follow certain rules and norms. Now, since you guys are new to the world of online teaching, you might be having a whole lot of confusion regarding when to communicate with people, how to communicate with people, how to use internet effectively, etc. So you must be given a clear lesson on etiquette. So here we go. Now, what is the difference between etiquette that we see in society and etiquette that we must follow while using technology? Now, etiquette in society is a code of polite behavior that we need to observe and exercise as good citizens. So while you are in the society, while you are functioning as a member of the society, there are certain codes and behavior that you must follow, right? So it may vary from country to country, from nation to nation, but there are some codes of behavior that you need to follow and exercise as a good citizen. Whereas etiquette in technology means it is a code of polite behavior that we need to observe and exercise as we interact with other people online. A small funny example would be that you won't be roaming around naked. If you are if you are a member of society, then you won't be doing it. If you do that, you would be branded as insane. The same goes with technology too. You must follow a set behavior patterns and you must observe it, you must exercise it when you interact with other people's online. Don't think that this is a medium and I'm not meeting them in person, so there is no need for me to be polite and proper. You must follow a code of conduct while you are online. Now, let's just take a look at how netiquette impacts virtual classrooms. So, it's one way of looking at it, right? Now, if you follow netiquette, it avoids or prevents miscommunication. Now, there is no physical expression when it comes to online classes. Most of the classes are done or conducted asynchronously, which means that the lecturer won't be present there in person to teach you, but his or her voice and sound would reach you. Another thing is that when a live lecture is going on, again, you are not meeting the person, you are not meeting the teacher in person. Instead, you are just meeting them on the screen. So there is a lack of physical expression here. So communicating online can be challenging in such a situation. So being respectful with another person would be good. Being respectful helps us to understand each other and the lesson properly. So you need to be respectful to the teacher as well as your fellow students. While a lecture is going on, you must not bombard the comment box with random questions or unsolicited messages, because you will be interrupting the teacher as well as the other students who are actively listening to the lecture. It enhances the learning experience. Now, keeping our discussions focused can only be achieved if everyone behaves politely and respectfully towards each other. So while you are in an online meet, you must behave respectfully towards each other and in a polite manner. Now, it builds a community of learners. Netiquette builds a community of learners who know how to collaborate with each other, because collaboration and cooperation is imperative when you are working online. Working together and helping each other benefits us all, especially in the case of distance learning, where sometimes the other person on the other end might not be having resources. So you might help the other person out by lending resources to them, by giving resources, by giving your input. You might be helping the other person, you might be helping your classmates. For example, you know the answer to a question. Gone are the days in which you would shout out the answer in classrooms. Instead, you would type the answer. Now, if you feel shy to type the answer, then the other person won't get the benefit of knowing the answer from you. So it's always better to collaborate with each other, to put forth your points, to put forth your ideas, so that everyone would get benefit out of it. Now, the most important thing to keep in mind while you are online is that we are all human beings. Especially teachers as well as students, we are all human beings. We are working 24/7, especially after the advent of COVID and everything that has happened. Everyone is working 24/7. They are online, either they are online or they are offline, working hard. So it is always better to understand the person who is on the other side. Try to treat everyone with respect. Now, one way of doing it is the proper way to interact with our teachers and classmates should remain the same. That is, if you were in a classroom setting, you would behave in a certain way and in a certain manner, right? There you have your teacher, then you have your class teacher who will guide you further, and then you will be having a section head. Then you will be having headmaster or headmistress, and they will be controlling all your actions. If you do something mischievous, then they will be controlling your actions. Just because you are not online doesn't mean that you could do something mischievous. So the thing is that whenever you are interacting with teachers, be polite with them. So the proper way to interact with teacher and the proper way to interact with classmates also should remain the same. Don't think that since I'm not there, no one is able to control me, or no one is able to scold me, so I can do whatever that I wish to do. Don't think like that. Instead, always treat the other person, the person on the other end, with respect. Now, we do not say anything online you wouldn't say to a person face to face. So if you don't say to a person something face to face, if you won't do that in real life, if you won't talk to a person in a rude manner face to face, then you must not do it online. You must not harass a person online. If you don't do it in person, then you must not do it online. So online harassment should be prevented. You must not speak to a person, or you must not say something untoward which you won't say in real life. Now, the internet age has turned learning experience through web as the new normal. Hence, it's all the more necessary to observe proper network etiquette or netiquette. Now, let's take a detailed look at some of the online manners that you need to follow. You need to collaborate harmoniously with others. Being able to function online is similar to functioning in a society. When we follow the rules of good conduct, we are able to work harmoniously with other people. This prevents miscommunication and misunderstandings from happening. So when you are speaking with a person, always be polite, speak with respect. Don't think that I'm online so nobody is going to attack me. Don't think like that. Just think that the person in the other end is also a human being. So be courteous to them. Another thing is that you need to help others as well as yourself. Now, virtual learning is new to all, and practicing good etiquette makes it easier for the transition for everyone who is involved. Sometimes the teacher who teaches you might not be familiar with the teaching technologies that are there available. They might not be familiar with any of those technologies. Still, they might be putting up an effort to teach you. That shows that the person is committed towards their work. So please don't make fun of them or mock them. So this is something that we the teaching community faced at the beginning of this pandemic. You might have seen all those memes and trolls that were created in names of teachers. You must not do that, because it is confusing. Virtual learning is equally confusing for you as well as for us teachers. We are learning more about it. You are learning more about it. So when you are helping yourselves learn about it, you must also help others. If a person does not know, for example, if a person in your class does not know how to submit an assignment using the online mode, if you can help them out, and you must reach out to your friends also, and thereby you might be able to collaborate with each other and then come up with solutions. Don't think that, oh, I know how to do this, so there is no need for me to explain this to anyone else. Don't think like that. Try to explain the things with your peers so that they will get benefit out of it. Now, manners are the basic building blocks of civil society. So you need to treat everyone with kindness and respect, either when you're online or when you're offline. Now let's take a look at some of the basic netiquettes to follow while composing professional emails. Now this is called email netiquette, and this part is important for your exams. Please study it thoroughly. Be what you are in real space. Don't create fake Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, etc. Try to be real in virtual world too. Be what you are in real space. Don't try to hurt another person. If you are a person who does not hurt others in real life, why should you do it online? So be real in real space. Don't be anonymous. Don't remain anonymous. Have an identity. You have a virtual identity of your own. Do not write whole messages in block letters. So when you are typing a message, whenever you are texting or whenever you are sending an email, never write everything on block letters. It is an eyesore. The person who reads it might find it extremely difficult to read it. Another thing is that whenever you are typing using block letters, the other person might feel that you are shouting at them. Because internationally, whenever you use caps lock, it has got the connotation that you are shouting at them. So never use block letters or capital letters while you are typing messages. Be formal except when you are communicating with family and friends. So try to keep a formal tone. Whenever you are speaking to your teacher, always consider that she or he is your teacher and speak in a very formal tone, and don't send short messages to them, or don't try to send small messages or short forms to them, because some teachers who are old might not be able to understand your SMS lingo or the new words. They might not be familiar with it. Okay, so always be formal when you're communicating. Except if it is with your family and friends, then it's well and good. You can communicate in whatever way you want. But if it is with a teacher or if it is with an employer, you must always keep a formal tone even while you're communicating using words, typing them. Do not use informal abbreviated forms of words in email. Don't use the SMS lingo or SMS language while you're typing email. Never use abbreviated forms. Use formal ones. Use the real English. Use reader-friendly forms and colors. Not forms and colors, it's fonts and colors. Wait a sec. So you must not use fonts which are too complicated to read. So there are certain fonts in MS Word as well, and it's extremely difficult to read those fonts. So always use reader friendly fonts and always use reader friendly colors. Use language which is proper and polite. Okay, whenever you are speaking online or offline, always be proper and polite, and respect the other person. You need to respect their privacy. You need to respect the fact that they are also human, and that's why when you are taking part in online classes, always the time duration in which you must do certain things is also given. Because why is that so? Because you must not send messages after a particular time, because the other person might be working, the other person might be doing something related to their work, or they have to tend to their family as well. So it's always better to know when to send a message to someone. So respect the other person's personal space. Respect the other person. Try to keep your messages short and precise. Don't send long messages, or don't send long para and page full of mails to another person, because often it has a threatening form. But if it is to explain something, you may resort to long messages, but still please don't send long messages to people. Keep it short, keep it precise. Whatever that you're trying to communicate with others, try to keep it short and precise so that the person on the other end might be able to understand what you are trying to convey. So that was it. That was all about email netiquette. Now, on a lighter note, you may use internet facilities to improve your soft skills too. For example, you may use dictionaries online to learn spelling and grammar. You might use a tool like Grammarly to type, so that you will be able to type without spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. Grammarly keyboard helps you to type without spelling mistakes and grammatical errors. Another thing is that you have pronunciation assistant in net as well. That is, if you ask Google to pronounce a word, it might pronounce back to you. And nowadays it has even got a pronunciation by which they would show the movement of your mouth while you pronounce that word. So it's very helpful. So if you are using your internet judiciously, you will be able to do all these things. You must not be using too much social media and get distracted by countless websites. Instead, you might focus more on rebuilding yourselves. Another thing is that, again, as I said earlier, you may record yourself using your phone, you may listen to yourself. That will help you correct yourself. So again, technology can be used in a positive way to improve your interpersonal skills. Now, you may read that small portion on interpersonal skills on your own, because it's basically what we have discussed so far. There's nothing new to it. You may read that from your textbook. It's there in page number 117. So with that, we come to an end to this lecture. Thank you for listening.